If you feel like you're providing very high quality food or a very high quality experience, but then you look at your own website and social media and feel like these don't match, this doesn't match the quality of experience that I'm providing, that's a great sign that it's time to invest.
Welcome to the Business Growth Masterclass, where business growth is made simple. I'm your host, Albert Gillespie.
And I'm your co-host, Kellen Ketchersid. Join us as we bring you stories from business leaders so you can learn from their wins, their losses, and everything in between.
Today's guest is Kim Robles, the owner of Greenhouse Creative, a photography business with a focus on food and product photography.
Easy for you to say.
Yep. Based here in Lubbock, Texas. Without further ado, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're excited to have you. I think I understand what y'all do, and based on the two sentences that I just read, but there's so much more to it. Can you explain to our audience, what does Greenhouse Creative do? What do you guys do?
I mean, you pretty much nailed it. Food and product photography. So I'm a professional photographer. So people hire me to come in and capture whatever. So often it will look like a restaurant if they launch a new menu or things like that, seasonal beverages or things like that. We come in and photograph whatever it is they've got.
Yeah.
Okay. I need like a lesson on this. I guess first, like, why did you pick that niche? And then like, teach me about that. Okay. First, sorry, terrible question. What brought you to picking that niche? How did you do that?
Yeah. So I used to be a wedding photographer. This I think is my 12th year in business. And I loved that. I loved weddings. I loved working with people, but COVID tanked my bookings as it did everybody else, especially in the event space.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I had done a little bit of work in the food and product space and just like loved it, but my focus was weddings. And so I had never considered pivoting until suddenly there were no weddings to be had. And it was like, who knows what the world is going to be like after this.
Yeah.
And I just decided, you know what? This is my opportunity. I'm going to take this moment and pivot because I already don't have any bookings. So nothing to lose. And I had been gravitating towards something different anyway. I was a little bit tired of weddings, certain things about weddings. I don't hate them. Some people really hate weddings. I don't. But I just felt like it wasn't aligning with where I wanted to go. And I love food. I love to eat.
Yeah, me
I
too.
love to cook. It's great. So, so I decided I only know of a small handful of other photographers in town that do food work specifically. So it seemed like there's a market, there's opportunity, and I love it. And so that's really why.
That's a lot of fun. And I would imagine, the personalities are a little easier to deal with when you're talking about.
I don't know. Have you met many chefs?
Okay, I take that back. We just watched Ratatouille with my kids, and it seems like chefs can be divas. I don't know.
They can.
Ratatouille. Okay, so what? Like that is such a different skill set than photography. Taking pictures, man, I'm struggling. Taking pictures of weddings. And so like what makes a good product or food picture? Like walk me through that. Explain that to me like I'm 5.
Sure. So there is a difference, you're right, because in the wedding space, it's like photos of you interacting with your family. And so it's kind of a low bar. Sorry to all the wedding photographers. It is a tough career, but
yeah,
it's like, people are going to love photos of themselves ultimately in their best day ever. So, but in the space that I'm in now, it's a commercial product. It's a B2B product. And so my goal is to create an ROI for this client. It's to create an image that tells whatever story they're trying to tell. And so that's, I would say the main difference is that it can look so different. One restaurant may be like they have a dark and cozy and moody vibe, and you go there for a romantic date. And another restaurant might be family friendly and it's bright. I mean, when you think of like maybe a Chick-fil-A, you think of like a lot of natural light, you think of happy faces and families and color. And, so I think every photo shoot is different, and you're trying to achieve whatever their goal is, sell whatever their product is. I don't know if I answered the question.
That's fascinating. I mean, just so much thought would have to go into every shoot, I can imagine. And like you said, it's easier with people because they're just going to love, they're going to love their wedding day. But I can imagine like, how am I going to take a picture of that plate and make it feel like it belongs in that restaurant or that place? So it's really cool.
In my mind's eye, I'm imagining this Chinese buffet that I grew up going to. It was it was like attached to a gas station.
Yes.
And they had, gas station Chinese. Oh, yeah. Very classy here.
And their menu, they had pictures of like every item, and every picture had this like yellow hue.
Right.
That it was like this, like it looked like
they needed Kim.
Yeah, it looked like an old lady was just smoking and just blowing smoke all over this menu for
probably what happened.
Yeah, I was about to say, because she was.
Yeah.
Anyway, so a lot of the pictures that you're taking are for menus and for like what are they using these pictures for?
So yeah, there's sort of two directions that I'm going right now, at least. And one is cookbooks. And so that would be something really different. Yeah. Obviously, you want great photos in a cookbook. That's why people buy cookbooks, I think. And then the other direction would be like, restaurants. So menu, or oftentimes actually what I found is that all my years of experience and different things I've done, kind of being a jack of all trades, has really served me, because for a restaurant, you need maybe photos of the food for the menu. You need photos for social, which people tend to be what other people want to see. And so you want lifestyle images, or you want photos of the team, or you want photos of the space. I've also done some interior photography. And so it's kind of like you have to hit multiple different skill sets. So I feel like that's what I find myself doing a lot of, is kind of
bringing in different skills. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We've noticed that with a lot of business owners, many times they come from a lot of disparate, like different kinds of backgrounds, but all of that seemingly like disconnected work comes together in a new way of thinking. And I love that. I'm sure that translates to your photography. When you're thinking about a cookbook or a restaurant, what do you have any necessarily like different ways that you're trying to feature the images that are different from one or the other? Or could you speak more to that?
Sure. So for a restaurant, again, it's tough to give definite answers because it is so different, like you said, every single shoot. So maybe helpful if I give an example. So I'm thinking of, I work a lot with a restaurant in town called Moto Medi. They're a Mediterranean fast casual restaurant. So they do a lot of online ordering. They do a lot of takeout type of stuff. So they needed images for their online ordering platform. So you want consistency for that. So every dish in the same spot, the same size, on the same white backdrop. So that's an example of one type of restaurant shoot. Whereas for a cookbook, you want to tell a story. I mean, you want to tell a story with basically every image, but especially with a cookbook, because often there's a concept that's like driving the cookbook. And so you want to tell that story through every image. You want to tell the story of the prep of the food, because that's what people are doing. So you have maybe some of the tools that people have been using, or how they're going to serve it, or how they're going to eat it, showcased in the images, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, are there any things that, you think, man, I'm glad that I think in this way. It makes me a little bit different as a photographer, and the way that I feature these photos, or the way I'm like approaching a shoot, maybe from, the different ways that you've, or the things that you've done in the past?
Yeah, I think actually one of the things, especially in this food space, that I've found to be really helpful is that I have also some graphic design experience.
Okay.
And so thinking about images through the lens of like graphic design principles. So like color, composition, scale, things like that. I found that that's really served me in this space that's a lot more technical, because a lot of what I found in Lubbock, specifically the Lubbock market, is most of the photographers that a restaurant owner or someone will have worked with are portrait photographers who don't have any of that sort of background. And so they kind of shoot from one really specific perspective that maybe doesn't account for all those design rules that I think really serve a marketing image well.
Yeah. Wow, this is getting into an area that's way above my pay grade.
Nerdy.
No, it's good. I mean, I'm having flashbacks to like high school art classes where we're like, I know that that's such an insult to what you're describing. It's just the closest thing that I can get to understanding. But
yeah, I'm imagining, more of like a producer, like a movie producer, that you're kind of going through the steps. And I feel like, on a YouTube video or something, that I watched some like McDonald's hamburger photography, and they were like painting tomatoes to make them look extra red, and like the mayo, they were like putting drops of blue food dye because it made the white that much brighter.
Wow.
Are you doing things like that? No.
Not painting any tomatoes?
No. I mean, that does exist, especially in the very high level commercial photography space. People do some of that type of stuff. You hear like motor oil instead of pancake syrup or things like that.
Wow.
But
it almost feels dishonest to me.
It is. Well, it's marketing.
Yeah.
Okay. Put your best foot forward, I guess.
Right.
Show people what they actually want to see, which is not what they're going to get in somewhere like McDonald's. But
it's kind of like dating.
It's true. Well, what I found is like, I don't know, a lot of the people that I follow who do this on a higher level, but maybe not that in that space exactly, you're actually trying to give the real food its best, put the real food's best foot forward, so to speak. So instead of using something fake, you make sure that you're giving enough space to every layer of a sandwich. Rather than using something fake, you're just making sure to pick the best piece of lettuce and then make sure it sticks out at exactly the right spot to give you the most pleasing, appetizing image.
Yeah.
I think that's really the difference between someone who has food experience and someone who doesn't, is paying attention to the stuff you would not pay attention to if you're cooking or, whatever, just for yourself. If you're just making food at home, you're not going to well, I do, but you're not going to pay attention to like how things stack up on your plate or how they layer or, that's kind of the difference between an appetizing food image and the Chinese food.
Yep. Okay. we just jumped in and went into the, whatever dungeon that we just escaped from. Tell me, okay, give me a little context of your background. Cause you've alluded to so much of this, of like, you had a graphic design background and you have this experience and that experience. Okay. Did you go to school for this?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
University of YouTube.
Okay.
When I graduated high school, I thought I was going to go to school and be a therapist. And so I started getting my basics at South Plains and, but at the exact same time, I also started my photography business because I'd been taking photos of my friends for as long as I could remember. I remember asking for my first camera, which was this little point and shoot. I think it was like a Susan G. Komen camera because it was hot pink and lime green.
Awesome.
And I begged my mom for that camera and took incessant photos of my dog and all my siblings and, and so I had done photography for fun for as long as I could remember. And so at one point I met this woman in Starbucks who was starting a ministry and asked for some help. And so I was going to photograph a conference, and the speaker that we brought in for that conference had a clause in their contract that the event photographer had to be a professional. And so I came to a friend of mine who was a couple years older than I that was a professional photographer. And I asked her, how do I be a professional photographer? And so she took me to the courthouse and got me a DBA and and I kind of never looked back. I just fell in love with it, realized I hated school and didn't want to go through enough years of school to become a therapist. And so I launched into doing photography. So I've been self-taught. I've worked a lot of odd jobs over the years, them all, Starbucks, I worked for a year at a church as a graphic designer. And so that's where the bulk of my design experience came from. But I've also always done a little bit of graphic design on the side because, I don't know, people came to me and said, can you design me a logo? And I said, yeah, I know how to do that. And then YouTubed it, and figured it out. So
what? Okay. I was not expecting that. What a great story. And like the entrepreneur story of like, you book this gig and then all of a sudden it's, oh crap, I've got to figure out how to do this. They want me to, I have to be a professional. What does that even mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Just figure it out as you go. You build the airplane as you're flying.
There it is. There it is.
100%.
But that's so standard with business owners that we talk to. I think a lot of people have this misconception that, if you're going to start your own business, you need to know everything and you need to have all your ducks in a row from the very start, and that almost never happens. You really have to have that mindset of just problem solving and going along and iterating. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I heard in there, photos of your dog, then logos, right? Weddings. We've got a lot going on here, different kinds of photography. Mm-hmm. And I just admire somebody who's willing to make those little pivots along the way. What has been one of the more challenging changes that you've made, or maybe more difficult switches in that journey?
Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly think switching into the commercial space has been the hardest because it really felt like starting over after having done this for a decade.
Yeah.
Truly feeling like I don't know anybody in the restaurant world. I don't know how to market B2B because it's really different than marketing to like brides who are like, I'm so excited about your wedding day. Yeah. And, it's just.
And then they'll tell their friends if they liked your pictures.
And you have an automatic 8 bridesmaids who will be getting married in the next 3 to 5 years. Like, the word of mouth network is really powerful in the wedding space. You have all these other wedding vendors you work with. And pivoting into the commercial photography space, it's like having to meet new people, which I didn't realize would be hard for me because I was meeting people in the wedding context all the time, but it's just really different than meeting complete strangers in the business context.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that felt like starting over, like needing all new contacts, learning a lot of technical skills because it really is much more technical. Like there were some skills gaps in my actual photography that I've learned a ton when I first pivoted, and I'm still learning. I'm always learning a ton, which I love it, really. I think definitely feeling like it's also lonelier. Like the wedding space, you're working with a team of other vendors every wedding day. So you're just by default around a lot more people and you're doing your clients' engagements and you're doing your clients' bridals. And so you're like having touch points. And so now I find myself sitting in my house all day, sending cold call emails, things like that, which is like, this is actually really tough. And so having to kind of build that back for myself has been a challenge for sure.
Yeah. Well, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but you've been a part of our business coaching, our mastermind group, and in our partnership with Local LBK. And so I'm curious, what's been the biggest benefit for you in going through that program? And has that fed into any of what we were just talking about there?
Yeah, certainly. I think meeting people has been the biggest benefit, just connecting with people in the business space, in the restaurant space. Like, you've connected me with several people that have turned into clients, which has been wonderful. And so I think that's been a huge deal because it feels like I would have never met most of the people in the mastermind by just organically. And so getting in the same room and being in the same room with people who are business owners and excited about what they're doing and excited about growth and change is like life-giving,
It is amazing how powerful that is. When we have these mastermind groups, usually the business owners that come in the room, they don't really see how they would necessarily work together. And then after a few months of being in that group, everybody's doing business with each other. And it's just a lot of fun. There's so much synergy in that. But I'm glad to hear you say that. If you're looking for a restaurant, if a restaurant owner is listening to this today and they're thinking about, man, I probably should revamp my menu, or I need some new pictures for whatever reason. What are some things you might say to them about what your services could provide?
Yeah, I would say if you feel like you're providing very high quality food or a very high quality experience, but then you look at your own website and social media and feel like these don't match, this doesn't match the quality of experience that I'm providing, that's a great sign that it's time to invest. And if you feel that people are starting to find you online, but again, you're embarrassed, like you're realizing, oh, you found me on Google, and then you cringe because you know what your Google photos look like, that's probably time. Also, I feel like take a look at your social media, and if it appears that you have not cleaned your camera in a few days before you've taken some photos, maybe it's time.
I would also
the old potato.
Yeah, I would also imagine just frequency of updating that information and those photos could help, even with SEO and things like that. I mean, we were just speaking with an SEO expert, and he was talking to us about the importance of regularly posting new content. I would imagine restaurant owners, they might not hate their photos, but they may not realize that they haven't updated them in 10 plus years. Mm-hmm. And so, maybe it's a good picture, but maybe they just need some refresh, and that would help with SEO and all kinds of things. So
can you make this a little more practical for me? Kind of explain, if you have a good success story for a client where, you updated their pictures and it resulted in X, Y, or Z for their business. Can you kind of tell us a story of a good client success story?
I don't know if I have a great example, like a clear example.
You didn't bring a data report ready for it? No,
oh, sorry.
No, that is a tough one on the spot.
Or your kind of your best client and how you've been able to help them, and kind of paint the picture of what, aside from, I need to update my Google pictures, but like make that a little more practical for business owners. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So a good example is Monomyth Coffee here in town. We've been working together for a few months now, updating some of their content. And I mean, exactly what I said earlier, they are hands down the best coffee quality in town for sure. And so having content that matches that and showing proof of life, because they're reaching out to more than one audience, because they're selling wholesale beans and they're also selling directly to people buying cups of coffee. And so for other coffee shops to jump on their socials and see, oh, they're very active, they're really successful, their coffee is making people really happy in their own shop, I should serve their coffee too. Like being able to speak to both of those audiences, I think has been a really powerful feature of their new content. And just, I mean, having a creative partner come alongside you and think through some of those things, because, for example, Trenton at Monomyth actually is a photographer. He knows how to use a camera, but he's so busy doing other things. He doesn't have the brain space to think through what's going to speak to this wholesale audience, what's going to speak to my cafe audience, like how do I, so having a partner come alongside and speak to some of those things and think through some of those things and have the creative ideas, I think is a really powerful thing.
I was just thinking about the fact that so many people love photography. A lot of people like Trenton at Monomyth. He's, I'm sure he's a good photographer. He's a creative guy. And yet, even though he understands the importance of hiring a professional who can come in and take those photos for his business. With that, I think there's probably a lot of people listening who enjoy photography. What are some things that you approach photography a little differently than others? Maybe what are some things that maybe you have figured out that aren't typically like what people do when they're approaching a shoot, or what makes your way unique?
I think I have learned to ask a ton of questions.
Okay.
And I've learned to sometimes help the client if they're not already, but get really clear on what the goal is. Who are we speaking to? What are we selling? Because that changes everything. Like if we're speaking to, like I kind of said earlier, a family with kids, we're selling one really specific thing versus if I'm speaking to CEOs on a business lunch, like they want to see two really different types of imagery. They want to focus on different offerings, maybe. Yeah. So I think it's about strategy, less even And this is why it's different for every shoot, because it's less like, oh, I use a flash in all my photos. Like I do often, but I only do it if it serves the type of client or customer that they're trying to bring in and the type of service that they're offering,
Yeah, there's just so much more thinking that goes into good photography. I'm realizing as I'm talking to you, these are the things that would never come to my mind because I'm, if I'm taking a picture, it's with my iPhone camera. But
please clean it before you take a
picture. I'm looking at it now. I think I need to. But like what you've talked about today, the composition, asking lots of questions, and those principles overlap, even though, there are a lot of business owners listening that they're not a photographer, but asking your customers questions, really going through that discovery process to know what is success in the eyes of this customer? Like, how do they define it? What are they expecting from me? And can I fulfill on that? How can I fulfill on that? Do they even want the thing I had in mind? There's so many business owners that need to hear that and be reminded of it, because sometimes I think we get in this place where we think we already know. We know what our customers like, and sometimes you'll be surprised if you just dig a little deeper and you can learn. And that you already mentioned being a continuous learner. So
that's well said. I mean, asking questions, understanding the problem that your customer actually has is so important. And I'm thinking about it, the more we're talking, the more I'm like, man, I look at pictures of food all the time. Like I'm the king of, like, we go on a trip and I pull up Yelp.
Researching.
And and I pull up Yelp and all right, give me the highest rated. And then I'm looking at like the pictures, and then I'm looking at like the environment, or what do they call it? Like the interior, like the ambiance pictures. And I'm looking for like, and there's a method to it. And yousually if they, show attention to that, and you can kind of understand what kind of restaurant am I going to? What does the food look like? Like, you're going to eat some good food. That is fascinating. And what a cool story of trial by fire. Like, obviously, like you have like a passion, like you have a very creative brain, but just throwing yourself out there and trying things. Tell me a little more about the cookbook.
I wanted to go that direction.
Venture. Have you made a cookbook yet? Tell me that story.
Yeah. So, I mean, this has been harder to break into. So I don't have as much experience in this space, but it's what I have my sights set on because I've left it. It was always, it's been a dream of mine since I first became a photographer to shoot a cookbook. I always would say that, just someday I want to do a cookbook. And a couple of years ago, a couple of years ago, I had come to a friend of mine who's a wellness coach who had been giving like ebooks of recipes to her clients and to friends. And I had said, what are the chances you would want to write a cookbook? And I fully expected her to be like, no, that's too much work. I don't know. And she's like, actually, I have thought about it. Let's do it. Like,
oh, okay.
Okay, great. So she and I just sort of wung it, really. We did it all ourselves. We self-published. We like kind of figured everything out together. So I designed and photographed it, which was super fun. I learned a ton, which is great. And I'm super thankful for that experience, because now having designed it, it gave me a lot of perspective about how to photograph it and how I would photograph it in the future. And so, can be a monster of a job, but it's really fun. And I love a really in-depth project like that, where you kind of touch multiple points of it. And I mean, you'll hear me say this a lot, but it really comes back to storytelling. And that's what I love. I love to tell a story. I love to hear a good story, especially a food story. I think that's partly why I love food so much, is that everyone has a story around food. A moment that impacted their life that happened around a table, a meal that was really memorable, a trip they took, and food they had that stuck with them, and I think I love hearing and telling those types of stories. And I think that's often the cookbook space is more story driven. The marketing space is too, but the cookbook space is in a different way, which I love. So,
what's your favorite cookbook?
Oh,
as a cookbook aficionado, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Yeah, that's a tough question because there's a lot that I like. Okay, one that I love to cook out of is called What to Cook When You Don't Feel Like Cooking.
Okay.
And
that sounds perfect.
The recipes are incredible. They're like split up by a dish that takes 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. And the 15-minute dishes really are 15 minutes and they're delicious.
Okay.
And it's well designed, of course, and beautiful photography. And I think it got New York Times bestseller.
So as far as the photos go, which cookbook do you think is closest to the style that you have? Or if you don't have an answer, what photographer or photography do you try to model yourself after, if any?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a photographer that does a ton of cookbooks. Her name's Eva Kolenko, and she's incredible. And I often will be scrolling Pinterest and be like, oh, I love this photo. And I click on it. I'm like, of course, it's Eva Kolenko. She's incredible.
Eva Kolenko. We're going to have to tag her when we post this episode.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I love her. There's some other food photographers, Ren Fuller, Jennifer Chong, super inspired by them. They have a podcast together where they talk about commercial photography. And so big fans of theirs. I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head, but
I haven't thought about the more we talk, I haven't thought about like so many cookbooks just have good stories of like, hey, this was my great grandma's recipe and she grew up, in the Great Depression and they used to make this and they would dig a hole and have with a Dutch oven and this and that. And those stories are fun. We definitely have several of those in our house, and it's always fun, when our family's around and we make this recipe and like, we're going to tell that story, they eat it and they're like, oh, this is great. And you're like, oh yeah, this is from that cookbook. And, so-and-so, her great grandma made it, and I guess like eating is such like a communal thing where you tell stories and you talk and that, I don't know, that's just really, really cool that you get to be a part of that.
There's a lot of, this isn't news to you, but in West Texas, especially, I feel like there's a big movement for, and maybe nationwide, to more natural foods, fresh milled grain, things like that. Have you ever thought about going in that direction, or have you ever done any work in, that way?
Well, the cookbook that I did do, I didn't say the name. It's called Intuitive Eating by Anna King. That's the cookbook that we published. And all of her recipes pretty much are gluten-free, dairy-free, like really healthy. It's actually half guidebook, half cookbook, where she talks about the concept of intuitive eating and, it's kind of health forward, health focused. I mean, I love that. I'm really nerdy about that kind of stuff. I'm pretty passionate about health and wellness. And so I would love to work more in that space. But I mean, I also would be happy to photograph really anything, any kind of food.
Well, I just think this movement to get back to, real foods and things like that, it's just cool. And I would imagine lends itself well to the type of photography that you're talking about.
Yeah, so. I think so, for sure. And really, like, one of the other things I love about the talking about food a lot is it's one of the only shared experiences that we all have as humans. Every culture for all of history has eaten food and eaten food together. Like every culture has its own dishes. Every culture has its own way of relating to food. And so it's like, it just touches every single person for all of history, which is so, well, what else in life does that? It's fascinating.
I was struck by something. This may sound a little random, but we're Christians, and I was listening to a podcast recently, a Christian podcast, and they were talking about in the New Testament, there's more scriptures that talk about Jesus at a meal than actually like engaged in teaching per se. And oftentimes he's teaching at the meal, but I just thought that was really interesting, and it speaks to that communal, like that's when we have meaningful interactions and when we sit together and we talk over food. And so, what you're doing, drawing people into that and thinking about where they're going to have that meal and when they're going to have that next lunch that might be important in their life. That's it's just really cool.
Sure. I mean, what I'm taking away from this is a lot of the Donald Miller storytelling in marketing, where you really want to start with your customer's problem, and then you position yourself, your business, as this guide who's going to help them find the solution to their problem.
Totally.
And then after, once they've solved their problem, it's like this future picture of themselves, either avoiding this disaster or achieving this ultimate goal. And segueing from that, where do you want to take this? What does this look like 5 years from now? What's your goal for Greenhouse Creative? What does that look like?
It's a good question. I feel like I'm still new enough in this space and still kind of getting oriented to what this is like and what's possible in the commercial space. But I mean, on my list of goals is you can win a James Beard Award. I don't know if you're familiar with James Beard. It's an award often given to chefs for different reasons, but you can win a James Beard Award for media. So cookbooks, there's usually a cookbook or editorial articles or things. I would love to win a James Beard Award.
Okay.
Or work on a cookbook that hits the New York Times bestseller list. I think that'd be super fun. But really, I want to, I mean, I don't know if this is kind of lame, but I want to have a business that's steady and provides for my family and allows me to get to tell great stories and to do it. I would love to travel. I'd love to, get to work outside of Lubbock some. And yeah, this is what I found in the wedding space in my previous life, it feels like, is I've met so many people that I never would have met. And I was in so many rooms that I couldn't have been in without a camera in my hand. And I hope for more of that, but in the food space. Like I hope to get to meet more people and eat food that I maybe wouldn't have gotten to eat or, otherwise. So, yeah.
Well, Kim, for me, and I think most of our listeners, I learned a lot today. And I think just the storytelling that goes into what you do and the thoughtfulness, I just really appreciate that. Appreciate you so much for coming on. Thank you for giving us a little insight here in your time.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right. If you are a business owner and you feel stuck in your business has plateaued and you don't know how to get to the next level, go to our website, stagcoaching.com. And in the upper right-hand corner, click to book your free consultation. And in your free consultation, we will give you the next few steps you need to take your business to the next level. It's free and it's on our website, stagcoaching.com. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.